Welcome to Blind Abilities. I'm Simon Bonenfant. I recently returned from the NFB 23 Convention in hot Houston, Texas. And if you were there, you know it was a great time. If you couldn't be there, don't worry. That's why you got me. From the next couple weeks to a month, I'll be delivering you all the latest news, stories, products, and anything else I found interesting at NFB 23 in Houston. For today, though, I'll be talking to Dave Williams. Dave works on the inclusive design team at RNIB. He serves as chair of the Braillists Foundation in the UK. He's a marathon runner, all-around great guy. I had a great time talking to Dave, and after you listen to this interview, I think you will agree that he's a great guy and doing a lot of great work out there in the UK with RNIB, NFB of UK, Braillists Foundation, and just his own networks and own personal connections. I'd like to thank Party Gill for connecting me with Dave and the fine folks at RNIB and the Braillists Foundation. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy my chat on the convention floor with Dave Williams. Hello everyone, this is Simon Bonenfant here, and I am in the wonderful city of Houston, Texas today at the National Federation of the Blind National Convention 2023, and I'm here talking to Dave Williams from RNIB in UK and the Braillists Foundation and marathon runner and all different things. Dave, I'll pass it over to you to give a little summary of the work that you're doing. Great to have you, Dave, and how you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much, Simon. It's a real pleasure to be here in Houston at NFB 23. As you mentioned, I work for RNIB. That's the Royal National Institute of Blind People in the United Kingdom. I work within our inclusive design team, where we collaborate with mainly technology companies to make sure that their products and services are inclusive and accessible for blind and partially sighted people. I also, outside of RNIB, chair the Braillists Foundation, which is a small UK-based charity that is led by blind people to promote Braille usage. Our mission is simply more Braille, and we do that in a number of ways. We have Braille courses, lots of community events, some online, some face-to-face. And then also, as you mentioned, I'm a blind runner, so I've run a couple of marathons.
So I know a lot of what you do has been based a lot on your experiences and some of the struggles and trials and triumphs and things that you faced in your life. Why don't you give the listener a little bit of an idea of how you got into this field and doing all the wonderful things that you do? Start by telling your story.
Well, when I was growing up as a young blind person, I really resented my blindness. I didn't identify as a blind person, and I really pushed back against the skills that you need to be independent. So I didn't want to use my white cane, for example, because I just felt like it was something that labelled me in a very negative way. And let's just say I fell down a lot of staircases at university. I also was a very reluctant Braille reader. Again, I thought Braille was something that was a little bit weird, a little bit odd. Like, why we got these big old beige books? And sighted people have all these colourful fonts and images and all this kind of stuff. I really didn't want to learn much about independent living skills. I'm still not great in the kitchen. And I sort of, bumbled along for a while, and then a few opportunities presented themselves that really transformed my attitude toward my blindness and made me want to share what I knew with other people. One of those things was that the local blindness association where I lived in the UK, they had some technology donated and they wanted someone to go in and teach their members how to use it. So I started doing that, and I recognised how empowering that would be when you teach somebody how to shop online, for example, for the first time, and they're able then to do the family grocery shopping, something that maybe they thought they could never do. Suddenly they're able to do that. Then you realise actually, somebody's gained a little bit of independence there. With my cane, I realised, having actually been punched by a guy for walking into him because he didn't realise I was blind, that actually if I used my cane, not only would I avoid things like that happening, but I would also get served a little bit quicker in bars and restaurants, and also get assistance on train stations, and also go and support my football team and get around the stadium, soccer as you say here. The Braille really moment, I think for me, I was using it for work, proofing documents, making notes, delivering presentations. My background is in assistive technology and sort of community media, and I was using Braille for work, but I wasn't really passionate about it until I became a parent and I was able to read the bedtime story with my son. He's sighted, but we won't hold that against him. But I was able to read, all those kids' books with him when he was little, and I just had this moment of realization that actually Braille meant that I could do more of the same things as sighted parents, not something that sort of separated me. So I think at that point I recognized that actually my technology, my mobility and my Braille skills were really precious and really valuable, and that I needed to try and spread those as much as I possibly could. So I've done that in a number of ways. I've worked in the assistive technology industry with companies like Dolphin and Baum and many others to help test and promote and product manage many of the tools that we use. I was involved with one of the first screen readers actually for smartphones. So I don't know if anybody remembers Windows Mobile back in the day. I was involved with Dolphin at that time, and we developed Smart HAL and Pocket HAL, which were screen readers that ran on Windows Mobile devices, and we also developed Talks for Windows Mobile. I was also involved with the development of Easy Reader, which is a free app that people in the UK use to access a wide range of accessible library services. And when I felt like I'd sort of done what I could at Dolphin, I worked kind of freelance, started a Braille podcast, Braillecast, and became involved with a group of enthusiastic Braille readers from Bristol, and that's where the Braillists Foundation came from. We realised that we needed a Braille first organisation in the UK, and a number of people suggested that I should chair it, and so we registered that with the Charity Commission a couple of months before the start of the pandemic. So not ideal timing, but like everyone, we pivoted and we went online, and we started delivering courses and community sessions connecting Braille readers and those with an interest in Braille to one another. Yeah, there's a lot going on, and obviously always room to learn more and learn from the community. And I certainly don't have all the answers. So I'm here at NFB 23 to learn from other blind people. Those life hacks that we all have. Different ways of doing things is so important to connect with the community and to learn from one another.
Absolutely. So for those who might be listening from the UK who are not familiar with RNIB and what they do, can you give a summary, and why would somebody want to get involved in RNIB initiatives?
So RNIB has a long history, originally established in I think 1868 to spread tactile literacy, and actually RNIB played a really important role in spreading Braille in the English-speaking world, because as you know, in those early days there was the War of the Dots and many competing tactile formats for literacy potentially, and RNIB spread Braille in the UK, and so that was the sort of the origins, if you will, of RNIB. The sort of the modern RNIB, I think, performs three functions in the UK. One is as a service provider, so we have our accessible library services, so you can borrow electronic, Braille books or talking books. That's very important. We have our Technology for Life service, where you can get support with using your technology, very often from other blind and partially sighted people. We also have our shop that has a range of, I think, around 900 products, all of which have been tried and tested by blind and partially sighted people, and come with accessible documentation in a format of your choice. And of course, any revenue from that goes back into supporting RNIB's other services. RNIB also offers our ECLO service. The ECLO is an eye clinic liaison officer. This is somebody that is a bridge between the medical diagnosis and the rehabilitation support that you might need, and they are play a critical role when you have that change in your eyesight and you need to access support that you need. So services is the first function of RNIB, I think. The second is as an advocacy organisation, a campaigning organisation that really, leans on government and policymakers and decision makers to make sure that, as much as possible, the world is designed in an inclusive way. So examples of some of RNIB's campaigns include audio description, tactile paving. The UK is going to get tactile paving on every train station platform edge, for example, as a result of campaigning work, advocacy by RNIB. Other areas, personal finance. We have tactile markings on our banknotes in the UK, something which I know some Americans are envious of, some Americans don't want, so everyone's got a view. And talking ATMs, as you call them here, cash machines, and many other campaigns besides. So that's the second part, and then the third part is about community. So RNIB tries to offer a kind of a safe space where blind and partially sighted people, we can connect and learn from one another, and so that's RNIB Connect. And so there's a network of Facebook groups, but also face-to-face groups where we can come together. There are events, activities, and a whole range of expertise, whether it's something to do with cooking or employment or just going out for a walk. People are doing all sorts of things all around the country, through the RNIB Community Connect groups. And of course RNIB Connect Radio, which is our national radio station on free-to-air TV in the UK, channel 730, and also on FM in Scotland, and of course anywhere online via your smart speaker. Just ask for RNIB Connect Radio. I host the Tech Talk show on RNIB Connect Radio, which is a community-led program where blind and partially sighted people can share what they know, and that's also available as a podcast. So you can just say to your A lady or G lady, play the latest episode of RNIB Tech Talk, and that comes out every Friday. So lots going on, but really RNIB is about services, advocacy, and community.
Very nice. And I know that the UK has been a leading contributor in the audio description market in terms of live events and things of that nature. That's something that I think the UK is leading more than the US in that, from what I have seen. I know that you just had a very big event in the UK, the King's Coronation, that was actually audio described, and I'm told that you had a hand in that. Can you touch on that briefly?
I did, yeah. So a couple of the national broadcasters in the UK, we managed to engage with the BBC and with ITV, both of whom were providing the live coverage of King Charles III's coronation. And of course these events don't come around very often. I think it was 70 years since the last one, right? So the BBC took one approach where they had a separate TV commentary that kind of ran alongside, and you could press the button and you would get a different narrator commentating, giving some visual descriptions, of the scenery and the costume and the action, just really, bringing that to life. We also had audio description from ITV as well, which I think sort of sat between the regular commentary. And then, of course, there was lots of radio coverage as well. And I actually think the best coverage came from Radio 4. They provided, very detailed descriptions of the royal regalia, the orb and the scepter and all of that. And it really was meant to make that occasion more inclusive and more accessible for everyone, and particularly those of us, that might not be able to see what's on the screen, but certainly had an interest in proceedings, because whether or not you're a royalist or not, I think we can all agree that it's a historic occasion, and it's one that doesn't come around very often, and so we'd like to learn more about what's actually happening on something like that.
Absolutely, and I really commend you for your work, and I hope that continues as well. Can you give contact info for people who would like to get involved in any of the resources you mentioned? I know that you also are involved a little bit in the NFB of UK, which is how I was connected with you, through Party Gill. And for those who have listened to Blind Abilities for a while, you might remember that Party Gill was on talking about his fantastic work as well. But as I said, can you provide some websites or social media resources that people can check out?
Yeah, absolutely. So RNIB is rnib.org.uk, and that's where you can find out more about RNIB services, advocacy work, campaigns, and join in with the community. You'll be able to find RNIB on all the regular social media channels, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I think we're just starting with Mastodon now, experimenting there. So yeah, RNIB is pretty easy to find in the UK. The telephone number, if you want to speak with us, it's 0303 123 9999. That's 0303 123 9999. And if you want to contact me, I'm dave.williams at rnib.org.uk. That's dave.williams at rnib.org.uk. And I'd be happy to connect. And then outside of RNIB, I mentioned the Braillists Foundation, and they're at braillists.org. And so in the UK, Braillist really just means anybody who is a user or reader of Braille. I know in the US it tends to refer more to somebody who produces Braille. But I think in the UK it's a slightly more inclusive term that means anyone who uses Braille. So Braillists, BRAILLISTS.org, Braillists.org is where you can find out about the work of the Braillists Foundation. So get in touch, and it'd be great to hear from anyone who's got something to share and wants to support any of the work that we're doing.
Okay, great. And as we close our chat today, can you give one piece of advice or the most important thing that you would say is of value to a blind and visually impaired person? It could be anything that you would like.
Well, I would just say sort of share what you know, spread it. If you've got a skill or a tip or a life hack, just put it on social media, tell people about it. That's where the real learning comes, I think, when we connect with one another and we talk with one another. I learned during the bread making frenzy of 2020, during the pandemic when we all made banana bread. I'm not, as I said, I'm not really a cook or anything like that. But I got involved in making bread in my kitchen at home. It just seemed like that's what the world was doing at that time. And it was actually my wife who works in independent. She teaches teenagers independent living skills at New College, Worcester, and she's blind herself. And she said to me, you can put your Braille display in a plastic sandwich bag, and you can still read the Braille through the bag, and you won't get all the flour or whatever inside your Braille display. And I just never thought of doing that before. I just thought it was such a neat little tip, little little hack, that I was able to use. And we were talking earlier about, when you travel and you get that moment when you're at the baggage carousel in the airport, and maybe you're by yourself as a blind person if you're traveling alone and you need to find your suitcase. One of the things I do is to take a photograph of the suitcase. So I've got it on my phone. So then, I can show that to everyone else at the baggage carousel and just say, look, this is the one I'm looking for, and that even works, of course, if somebody doesn't speak the same language. So, just those little kind of life hacks, I think, are so important, so useful, and they can just make your day that little bit easier. And so, share what you know, and, if you learn something cool, spread it.
There you go, folks. There's the power of that peer support. Well, Dave, I'd like to thank you so much for your time. It's been great talking with you and meeting you and connecting with you. You're doing some great work over there in the UK, and I thank you for all that you do to serve the blind community in the UK and beyond. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of the convention.
Simon, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Such a great time talking to Dave. Great to hear all the work that he's doing in the UK. I thank you for listening today. If you'd like to contact Dave or any of the initiatives that he talked about, you can visit the show notes to find all that information. Thanks for listening and have a wonderful day.
When we share
what we see through
each other's eyes, we can then begin to bridge the gap
between the limited expectations and the reality of blind ability.
And the realities of blind abilities.